Have you ever wondered about the history of Mel Brooks? When someone says Mel Brooks, what comes to mind? A man shouting, "It's good to be king"?
It's good to be the king.
A chorus line of singing Nazis?
That people, you know me. I used to run a little jump.
Cowboys eating beans around a campfire in a groundbreaking moment of flatulence in film history? If any or all of the above make you chuckle, then you already understand the essence of Mel Brooks, a creative whirlwind who reshaped comedy in American cinema, stage, and television. But behind the laughter is a life as rich in personal struggle, innovation, and daring as it is in punchlines. Let's dive into the fascinating story of Mel Brooks, a man who turned the absurd into art and gave us permission to laugh at the things we fear most. Welcome to History Wonder. Mel Brooks was born Melvin Kaminsky on June 28, 1926 in Brooklyn, New York, to Max and Kate Kaminsky. He was the youngest of four boys in a Jewish family, living in a working-class neighborhood. His father died of kidney disease when Mel was just 2 years old, a loss that would cast a shadow over his early years and help shape his darkly comedic sensibility. Brooks described his childhood as tough but full of love and laughter. He was a scrawny, asthmatic kid, often teased but quick-witted and naturally funny. Comedy became a survival tool and eventually his calling. He was inspired by entertainers like Sid Caesar, Charlie Chaplin, and the Marx Brothers. After graduating high school early, he enlisted in the U.S. Army during World War II, serving as a combat engineer in Europe. He defused landmines, seriously, and entertained troops by playing drums and telling jokes. Yes, even war couldn't keep Mel Brooks from getting a laugh. After the war, Brooks began working the Borscht Belt Circuit, a string of Jewish resorts in the Catskills that served as a proving ground for generations of comics. He eventually landed a gig writing for Sid Caesar's groundbreaking variety show, Your Show of Shows, from 1950 to 1954, working alongside other legends in the making like Carl Reiner, Neil Simon, and Larry Gelbart. His partnership with Carl Reiner birthed one of the most beloved comedy duos of the era, The 2,000-Year-Old Man, a recurring sketch in which Brooks played an elderly man who witnessed all of human history and Reiner played his straight man interviewer. Their improvised routines eventually became comedy albums and even won a Grammy in 1998. Brooks then set his sights on the big screen. He wanted to do more than just make people laugh. He wanted to change how people laughed. In 1967, Mel Brooks wrote and directed his first feature film, The Producers. The story, a washed-up Broadway producer, Zero Mostel, and a nervous accountant, Gene Wilder, hatch a scheme to produce the worst play ever written, a musical called Springtime for Hitler, in order to embezzle investor money. But things go so hilariously wrong when the show becomes a surprise hit. At the time, making a comedy about Nazis was taboo, even dangerous, but Brooks, a Jewish veteran, believed that mocking Hitler was the ultimate act of defiance. If you can reduce him to something laughable, you've won, he said. The Producers shocked audiences, received mixed reviews, but ultimately became a cult classic. It also earned Brooks an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, launching his directing career with a bang. Decades later, it would be adapted into a wildly successful Broadway musical, winning a record 12 Tony Awards in 2001. Over the next decade, Brooks would write and direct some of the most iconic and influential comedies in film history, each a genre parody with a razor-sharp satirical edge. Blazing Saddles in 1974, a send-up of westerns and fierce indictment of racism. Blazing Saddles tells the story of a black sheriff, Cleavon Little, appointed to protect a racist frontier town. With a script co-written by Richard Pryor, the film blends slapstick, social commentary, and absurdism. It broke all the rules, including the ones about good taste. From a horse-punching outlaw to the infamous bean-eating scene, the film tested the limits of what could be done in comedy. Studios were terrified, but audiences roared with laughter. Blazing Saddles became a box office smash and remains one of the most talked about comedies ever made. Young Frankenstein, also in 1974. Later that same year, Brooks released what many consider his masterpiece, Young Frankenstein, co-written with Gene Wilder and shot in black and white using the original lab equipment from the 1931 Frankenstein movie. It's a love letter to classic horror films. The jokes, from Puttin' on the Ritz to Abby Normal, are iconic, and the performances, Wilder, Madeline Kahn, Marty Feldman, Terry Garr, are pitch perfect. Despite being a parody, the film is visually stunning and surprisingly respectful of its source material. It also helps solidify Brooks' reputation as a master filmmaker, not just a gag writer. Silent Movie in 1976 and High Anxiety in 1977. Brooks continued to push boundaries. Silent Movie is just that, a nearly wordless comedy in an age of sound. With Brooks, Dom DeLuise, and Marty Feldman, High Anxiety, a Hitchcock spoof, was a brilliant blend of homage and parody, with Brooks playing a psychiatrist plagued by, well, high anxiety. These films didn't always achieve commercial or critical heights of Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein, but they showed Brooks' range and boldness. In the 1980s, Brooks kept mining genres for laughs. History of the World Part 1 in 1981 was an ambitious, scattershot film that spoofed everything from the Old Testament to the French Revolution. It gave us the unforgettable line, "It's good to be the king."
It's good to be the king. It's good to be the king.
Spaceballs in 1987 took on science fiction and especially Star Wars. Though it wasn't a massive hit at the time, it became a cult favorite thanks in part to Rick Moranis' performance as the helmet-headed Dark Helmet and Brooks' own turns as Yogurt and President Scroob. Robin Hood Men in Tights in 1993 brought a musical, irreverent tone to the Robin Hood legends, starring Cary Elwes and featuring a young Dave Chappelle. Dracula, Dead and Loving It in 1995 was his final directorial effort, a goofy take on vampire films starring Leslie Nielsen. While some critics claimed Brooks was past his prime in the 90s, fans remained loyal and his work continued to influence new generations of comedians. Off-screen, Mel Brooks was known as a loyal friend, fierce wit, and devoted husband. He was married to actress Anne Bancroft from 1964 until her death in 2005. The couple was considered a Hollywood rarity, a genuine love story. Bancroft reportedly said, "When Mel walked into a room, the light changed." Brooks has often described her as his muse and his rock. Together, they had a son, Max Brooks, who would go on to become a best-selling author. World War Z? Brooks has remained active well into his 90s, lending his voice to animated films, making TV appearances, and producing projects. In 2013, he received an AFI Lifetime Achievement Award. He is also one of the few entertainers in history to achieve EGOT status, winning an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Mel Brooks didn't just make comedies, he changed what comedy could be. He proved that satire could be both hilarious and thought-provoking. He used humor as a weapon against tyranny, ignorance, and hate. His work opened the door for edgier comedies and inspired countless filmmakers from the Coen brothers to Judd Apatow. In an era increasingly cautious about what can be said in comedy, Brooks has always defended the right to laugh as serious subjects. "Comedy is the lecherous little elf whispering in the king's ear," he once said, always telling the truth about human behavior. And that's what Brooks has always done, held up a funhouse mirror to society, making us laugh at the reflection and maybe understand ourselves a little better in the process. In 2023, more than 40 years after the original History of the World, Brooks returned as an executive producer and narrator of History of the World Part 2, a Hulu series with a star-studded cast and writing team. Though he didn't act in it, his spirit loomed large. The series proved that even in his twilight years, Mel Brooks' comedy remains timeless. The jokes were bold, the targets wide-ranging, and irreverence, pure Brooks. And he just announced that he will be making Spaceballs 2, set to be released in 2026. He will be over 100 years old when it's released. His influence can be felt not just in film and television, but in the very tone of American comedy. Modern comedians and filmmakers from Seth MacFarlane and Tina Fey to Taika Waititi and Jordan Peele owe a debt to Brooks' blend of satire, slapstick, and social commentary. Even today, his films are studied in film schools and quoted endlessly by fans. Walk This Way, anyone? Mel Brooks didn't just entertain us, he helped shape the very nature of American humor. He dared to make fun of directors, to turn horror into hilarity, and to find absurdity in the things society often feared to confront. He never shied away from taboo or controversy, but always approached it with an eye toward exposing hypocrisy, bigotry, and human folly. His gift was in making the subversive feel joyful, the offensive feel insightful, and the silly feel smart. In doing so, he created a body of work that remains not only wildly funny, but also culturally important. Now in his late 90s, Mel Brooks stands as a towering figure in entertainment, a man who rewrote the rules of comedy, one pratfall and punchline at a time. And though the world has changed dramatically since he started cracking jokes in the Catskills, his core belief still resonates. Hope for the best, expect the worst. The world's a stage, we're unrehearsed. Long live the king of comedy, it's still good to be him. Thanks for watching. What topics in history have you wondered about? Comment below and let us know what videos you would like to see, and be sure to like and subscribe.
It's good to be the king. It's good to be the king.